Future risers. Yes. Oh, you know the
Hey,
voices.
hey.
You know the voices. We're here. And wow, we have someone here today that I'm a kid in a candy store. So y'all are going to get 2% energy. So y'all just watch yourselves now. I ain't going to slow down for you. Okay. But we have a wonderful guest today. I'm going to bring my mature self to the party because I'm so excited and I have so many questions. Today's going to be a little bit of a sensitive topic. That does not mean we're going to stop who we are to have the conversation. It has to be had, but we have to be authentic in who we are in the conversation. Here is my caution. Do not misunderstand if we laugh or chuckle that we're not taking what we're saying or about to share seriously. I'm going to wait for you. I want you to hear that. We're going to have a serious conversation. But sometimes when something is a bit bothersome or serious, sometimes you do laugh, you do chuckle. It doesn't mean it didn't hit. Y'all don't play with me. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It doesn't mean it didn't hit. So we ask for grace today. Oh, intentional. Dig down and give it to us. We need grace because of what we're going to say. And we need grace that if we chuckle or laugh, just because we're human, doesn't mean we don't believe and we don't stand on the sensitivity of the conversation. I'm starting already before we get in, because sometimes you got to set the room before you come in the room. So since we're in the room, it's our responsibility to set it before you come in. That's where I'm at. This is what it is.
Yes.
We are recording on a Friday. So happy Friday if you made it well through the week. If you didn't make it well through the week, you got more time. Don't give up. There's a little bit more left in the day or the evening or the night. Don't give up. Listen, today we are joined by Miss Pat White. She's esteemed to me and she will become esteemed to you. She's a part of AFSP. Oh, yes. And this chapter is for Dutchess County and Westchester County, both upstate and downstate. Oh, I told y'all we got people. Yes, we do. Let me tell you something. They have a mission to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. It's as simple and as complex as it is. They said, we'll do it. Give us the job. We will show up. That ain't no easy ask. It ain't easy. It's not easy to be left behind. It is not easy for someone to leave too soon. It is not easy for somebody to say, I'm done with the fight of life to be better. I'm out of here. None of that is easy for those who have had to do that and say goodbye. And it's not easy for those left behind with questions or regret or guilt. And AFSP says, we'll take the lead in the fight. My God, y'all gonna have to give some respect today. They are standing up. This organization considers them to be a voluntary health organization. So let me tell you, suicide is a part of health. I don't know if I hear people saying that. It's a fight for your health, baby. So they consider them a voluntary. You hear that word voluntary? This was not forced. They recognized and they said, we'll do it. We'll band together. They want to give those affected by suicide a nationwide community to be empowered by research that are getting better every day, by education that they must give, and for advocacy because they want to take that action against the leading cause of death. You hear what I said? I didn't say cancer was a leading cause, you know. I'm taking my time today. Y'all mad? Don't be mad. Suicide, leading cause of death, not an automobile accident. Not cancer, not diabetes, not AIDS, HIV. Are y'all gonna get madder? Suicide. That's what's taking us out. And so Miss Pat is here, and she is going to educate us because we need to be educated beyond what we know, what we think, and what we have heard. Okay, soapbox over. Intro was needed. All right, Miss Sounds, I'm going to just stop now because I see some people in the background eyeballing me.
No, what you said had to be said. So we're just grateful to have you all listening, and we're grateful to have Miss Pat here with us on the podcast in the casa, where we have real conversations. Like, we're gonna really get into it today. And we're just honored to have you. So thank you, Miss Pat, for joining us. We're gonna start with our word of the day. And what this is we find a quote that usually speaks to us or resonates with us. We read it, and we each kind of go around and talk about what that means to us in our lives. You can pull from past experiences or something that recently happened to you. But we just like to see what each other's thinking. So I'm going to read it. It says, if you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. If you look at what you don't have in life, you'll never have enough. And that is by the Queen Oprah Winfrey, okay?
Absolutely, Queen indeed.
Ms. Pat, do you mind going first on this one? I want to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much, both you, Sister Azili, and you, Miss Sounds, for inviting me to be part of the Raised Voices podcast. When we had our early interview in preparation for this, I really didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. And sometimes that's better, because then you are, speaking truth organically.
Yes.
Through the conversation. And I know that is part of your mission.
Yes.
And so I am part of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, as you had mentioned in the introduction. And so let's dig in deep into the word of the day. So if you could just restate it one more time, because I want to make sure that I cover it as best I can.
Absolutely. So the word of the day, again, is if you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. If you look at what you don't have in life, you'll never have enough.
Wow. Wow. Well, one thing I can say for sure is that what I do have, it was really born and birthed through the values and the principles of my family.
Yes.
And I have to really give honor to my dad and my mom, who were community organizers, if you will, and not the traditional ones, the non-traditional community organizers, helping those who are in need, and then building from that. And because of that, my family, my siblings, my extended family, we would always look to have more, to look at what my husband says, looking beyond the horizon. And seeing what is out there, and then moving towards those things that sort of align with your values, sort of align to your thoughts, and then work towards that intentionally. Now, when you do that, right, you're seeking more, you're getting more because there's so much that you see. You see in front of you. Think about it now. You see in front of you, but when you look beyond the horizon, many people can't look that far.
No.
And so my parents, my father, my mom taught us how to look beyond that. And then because of that, family value, family structure, we were able to seek and gain so much. Now, when you don't have it, if you can't look, if you don't see what you don't see, if you can't reach what you can't reach, then you do end up with little.
Yes.
Because then you don't have the motivation and the drive to obtain it. And I guess, through all these years that I've been on this earth, so many lessons have been learned in that word for the day and that word for the phrase.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you asking that question.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. When I think of this quote, I think of abundance and scarcity, the two things that I think we can look through the lens of life from those perspectives. And one says, I don't have enough, I'm not enough. And the other one says, I have more than enough as I am right now. And one of the things that I think in my life, as I am looking towards change and transformation, I have tried to be very intentional about not waiting till I get there to say that I have enough, or not waiting till I get there to say that I have it all, but to know that in the small steps leading there, I have everything that I need in every season, in every step that I'm taking. So it's an intentional reminder every day when I am faced with the self-doubt of, well, we don't have enough, so we can't do this. I can ask this follow-up question back to self-doubt and say, well, what do we have? Like, what do we have right now? Which opens up a realm of possibilities. It opens up creativity to do things with little and make it big, those kinds of things. So it's an intentional choice, I think, to look at life from a standpoint of, I have all that I need in me already and around me.
Oh, I love that.
So
I got
good.
so much from that.
I'm just trying to tell you, I don't want to go next. That was a setup. We got to get like an exclamation we can put on the screen. Do they sound those? Do I have to download that exclamation tonight?
Buy an Amazon sign or something.
Right. No. So good. Listen, I love both of what you guys had to say. I mean, the sound, you just rock and rolling today. I didn't know. I thought we were playing jazz, but she up there like in a whole another realm. What I wanted to say and really just supporting both of what you guys have said. That first part, if you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. I am going to do an out of the box connection. It used to annoy me when they would tell me to recycle something. Because I feel that when I've used something up, that's a thing. We are not talking about people. Y'all don't run down the street with no newspaper. Listen to me first. I feel like when I've used up a thing and I no longer want that thing, object around me, it's time to get rid of it, toss it. And when they tell me to recycle something, I'm saying, what are we keeping on to something that's no longer of use? But when I look at this quote, for some strange reason, it reminds me that some things in your life that you think have come to the end of its usefulness has more to give you if you look at it differently.
I love that.
So that's sort of what's been throwing itself at me as I look at this. If you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. Try to see if the thing that you're about to get rid of, the talent, the thought, the way of doing, the method, Does it have a little bit more it can give you so that you don't have to sacrifice and go get a brand new? Because maybe the old got some stuff left in it. I don't know. I'm just asking y'all. Because I'm going to tell you, my children would tell you, mama don't throw it out before she looks at it a couple of different ways to see if it can be reused somewhere else in our home.
Yeah. Repurposed. Whew,
Wow. You know, what a great analogy, because if you think about it, and especially for me and the work that I do, you know, one of the things that I really, really hold on to is legacy and mentoring.
Yes.
And mentoring is just what you spoke about, because every person that you touch, that we touch, through our personal life, through our church life, through our career, they come with various values. They come as a different person. And so if we have that one recycling piece item, that item can be used, will be available for those three sectors: home, community, and school.
Yes.
And you're now teaching, those young people, and then also teaching our peers life's lessons, and the early, and especially for our young people, their early development.
Yes.
And so that one element will be used and have an impact for the rest of their life.
Yes.
And then when you talked about intentionality and being abundance and say, you said abundance,
scarcity,
and scarcity, that's one, abundance, you have so much.
Yeah.
And then you want to, for me anyway, I find myself to have so much knowledge, so much resources. I want to give it back.
Yes.
And so by giving it back, that's part of being, recycling.
Yes.
I'm taking it, I'm giving it back. And then I watch that individual then recycle it again to someone else.
Yes.
And that's what brings me joy in this conversation. And then if that individual doesn't have, right, in my conversation with them, in my interaction with them, and I say to myself, that individual needs a little bit more, then I pull from what I have to give to them so that they can have more.
Yes.
And that's how I live. That's how I live my life. People say to me all the time, Pat, you always give, give, give. Well, I said, I have so much to give. And the giving is not always financial.
Yeah.
The giving more for me is just knowledge, being able to be a thoughtful thinker, being able to also be a socially and politically conscious person.
Yes.
And have some skills to be able to maneuver through life and not always accept what is given to you.
All right, park y'all cars.
Sorry.
You have to drive to work. I'm sorry. Don't park it. Just
y'all getting the gems and the wisdom already.
I know. Exhale. So, Miss Sounds, I'm gonna let you lead us in. We got to get to know this lady. So do what you do.
Well, I am already just wowed by the wisdom that comes from you right now, Miss Pat. I want you to tell our listeners, who is Miss Pat? What drives her? What are her values? And what has caused you to show up in your community through organizations that you lead?
Sure. Great question. Well, I always introduce myself as a mother, as a grandmother. My family comes from the South, South Carolina, and moving up the migration right to here in White Plains, New York, and then further north into a small town in Massachusetts. And that migration journey, certainly for my family, I've captured, my parents, both parents taught me, as I stated earlier, those values. And then, and as I grew up, many of those values showed up. Like, my mom was a community organizer in this small town called Elmsford. I'm watching her and her peers move policy and legislation. Like, whoa, look at these women, demanding this and demanding that for their children. And I am the child at that time. Fast forward, then I took the community organizing, took the issues around leading, those who don't have, and just really made it part of my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I landed with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and landed with my 30 years of county government in child welfare and in community mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And through those and through those 30 plus years, touching the lives of families who did not have the scarcity,
Mm-hmm.
and then bringing to them a level of hope, and then watching them, come through, their own struggles, and then coming back to me and saying, Miss Pat, thank you so much for
Yeah.
all that you've done. And so right now, the community calls me the dot connector.
Yes.
When you have all of these years, right, of being involved in the numerous organizations that I am, I get to know people, I network with people, I develop my sister circles and all of these different arenas, and each sister circle is different,
Yes.
right? Um, and so, so that's how I show up.
Mm-hmm. I love
Mm-hmm.
that. I
Yeah.
What
love
is
that.
the part of the work you do other than obviously
Mhm,
helping to give hope
mhm.
and then seeing the progression later down, especially in the work you're doing with suicide prevention? That is just so super sensitive, and that is something that many people deal with that do not talk about it out loud.
That's
They
right.
keep it internalized,
Yeah.
Yes.
hush hush. There's a
Mhm,
lot of shame and guilt that goes with that,
mhm.
that we don't hear about till after something is too late. So what keeps you in that seat in particular, of all the things you do, in that particular seat?
I appreciate that question. My involvement with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention goes back about 15 years,
Mm,
as a program specialist and part of the training team with the Department of Community Mental Health under the Commissioner, Michael Orth.
mm,
And at that time, we were developing our suicide prevention task force, sort of looking at the suicide numbers here in Westchester County and the Mid-Hudson region. And Maria Iadoni, who is currently the area director, she reached out to me 15 years ago to say, Pat, can we do some training in Westchester? I've got training happening already in the other counties here in the Mid-Hudson region. Can we come down to Westchester? And my immediate response was absolutely.
mhm.
And then the thought was, then how do you then draw the audience in
Yes.
for a topic such as this? And so I just used what I had best, which was the community network, where
Mhm.
we meet with service providers all the time, monthly, on different themes and topics. And so introducing that to the community network partners really then opened up the door for further conversation.
Mhm.
And then after I retired during COVID, and we saw all the emerging disparities coming across all of our systems, the suicide rate was rising,
Wow.
right? And we know that the data shows us that the community that was being hit hard by these suicides was our African American and our communities of color. And yes, our population, our white males, our white females, yes, and our young people, those were the numbers that was rising. In the African American community, in our Black and Brown community, in our Asian population, and our young people. And I said, we need to address this. And we also know that suicide is a topic that we just don't talk about, especially in our community.
Yes.
And so my thing was, how can I shift that conversation? And that's what is bringing me now to AFSP in these past 4 years. And then using the most important sector in our community is our church, and the role of the church, and how does the role of the church impact all that we do and impacts our lives every day.
Yeah. Do a connection for me, even though risers, we'll do a part 2, but I do want to have an infusion here. Is there a concern with the data you have or the experience you have that there is also a suicide epidemic in our churches?
Interesting question, because one of the reasons why. Okay, so let me share a story. 4 years ago, I'm walking, to my partner's office, and one of our pastors, our leading pastors here in Westchester County, Pastor Lee Trollinger, he comes up to me and he says, Pat, I need you and Michael Orth, the commissioner, to come and speak to our interfaith council about the rise of suicide in our churches. And I was like, I don't know that data. And he says, well, it may not be happening here in Westchester, but I do have personal experiences of individuals that have died by suicide, and they are the senior pastors, the lead pastors of their community. And I said, absolutely. Michael and I, we go and we meet with them, and their ask was, do you guys have a curriculum? Is there a training that you can provide to our faith leaders around suicide and suicide prevention and mental health awareness? And that's how this journey really began.
Wow.
And it was Maria Iadoni who reached out to me not several weeks later to say, Pat, I have a curriculum that I want to bring to Westchester, and it's equipping faith leaders on how to minister to those who have been impacted by suicide and to those who have been impacted by mental health. And that's where it began. And so doing that work and looking at the data, and as COVID hit, so I'm talking about an early conversation, 2019, December 2019, then bringing partners together in early January, and then COVID is creeping in, but nobody is talking about it yet. But here, COVID hits March of 2020, and we had that workshop several days before we went shelter in place.
Whoa.
With 120 faith leaders and 19 denominations. So it was an issue that they saw already before the numbers started coming out during COVID, but it was always there. But again, what COVID did, it had a silver lining. And that silver lining was really the introduction to all of the emerging issues that we all now talk about today. And we're still talking about, and it's going to lead us to doing some really good work, even though the beginning was all around the disparities, because now we're all being accountable, as you indicated early on.
Yes.
About looking at solutions, looking at prevention, looking at the research
Yes.
to reduce those numbers.
So
I hope I answered your
risers.
question.
Oh, you certainly did. Risers, here's my plug, and then Miss Sounds is going to take us a little further down the road. I asked that question because I want us to remember. I'm going to use remember that suicide is a human thing. This is not, I'm not looking at geographic location, sex, gender, religious disposition. It's a human thing. It's everywhere. And this is what I wanted us to remember. Now, as sad and uncomfortable as that thought is, if we do not deal with reality, we can't change it. It requires us to say out loud those sad, uncomfortable, despicable things that live either next to you, in you, or in your home. I'm going to let you take a minute. I know that sounds simple, but those of you who are truly listening understand the complexity of what I said and how hard it is to hear it, to remember it, to accept it, and then have to do something about it. It has to be said. It has to be said. It's a human issue. Okay, Miss Sounds, I think I'm doing a lot today, but I feel like we have to say some of these basic yet important things. We can't change what we don't know. I can't do any work to change. If I have an attitude and you tell me I have an attitude and I don't recognize I have an attitude, I can't change my attitude towards you. So we go nowhere. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I hear your passion for the Black community in the space of suicide. And I see a common theme in our people a lot of the times when it comes to this idea of silence and not speaking up. Can you talk to us a bit about how silence plays a dangerous role in instances of suicide? And how do you see that playing out in the occurrences you've studied and encountered?
Absolutely. Right, because we all remember, growing up that silence was it was called, you know, grandpa, he's in the back, he's all right. We won't bother him.
Right.
Knowing that grandpa or the uncle or the cousin was struggling with mental health, but they didn't say anything. They just said, oh, he's a little crazy, but we're gonna keep him in the back, right?
Yes.
And then you have, the story, of the aunt, right? Who comes in to every family event, family reunion, and look at Aunt Pat. She's a little off today. Don't worry about it. We'll give her something to drink to kind of calm her down. And we knew, as we think about it in hindsight, maybe that Aunt Pat or that Aunt Mary was suffering from mental health.
Yes.
She may have had schizophrenia, she may have had bipolar, but the family didn't call it that, right? No, the family did not call it that. They just said, oh, she's a little crazy, and we'll just give her something to calm her down. And so what I'm finding now, as we talk about, these stories and how stigma kind of shows up within our family as we, go through this training, is that people now are looking at the data, looking at the numbers, looking at the real issue in real time and real conversation with others that are experiencing and families that are experiencing the same thing, and then feeling a level of trust in that lead, and then opening up the conversation. And who best to open up the conversation is with our pastors. You know, we are seeing now a new generation of leaders in our faith community that are young,
Yeah.
that have gone on to school, that have really embraced these nuances, and now they're bringing it to the pulpit. So when you have a pastor on a first Sunday in May, next month, May is Mental Health Month,
Yes, it is.
speaking about the text in the Bible and how that aligns with suicide, how that shows up in mental health, that's huge. That's a transformation.
Yes.
Mm.
And you have then the congregation listening to it, being part of this whole movement, and now being the saints, being the ambassadors, and then pushing it out into the community. And so that's how we moved from the silent epidemic, right, that no one talks about, now to a transformation where young people, middle-aged and older folks are really speaking about it. When we do a training and we have an intergenerational group in the room, that brings me joy. I get so full because each one will learn, will learn from the other. I
Yes.
could go on. Even the host of the training being a church. And then, one of the game changers is I want to make sure that 50% of those in the audience comes from that church, and the other 50 from the wider community.
Yes.
And then we have this whole dialogue and intersectionality of faith and clinical work, and how best for it to show up, but in a church, in a synagogue, and a temple. You can't ask for anything better than that. And so here we're talking about this sad situation, right? This really dark issue. But when people receive the resources, it only brings them to the light, which then brings them joy, which then they have the information then to help the next person.
Oh my gosh. All right, I got to put another plug in here. Woo, lordy, lordy, lordy. I'm going to be careful here. I am so glad that you coined and packaged it the way you did. And so I want those who have disabilities, whether of a physical nature or a cognitive nature or an emotional nature, and you have spoken to caregivers and those in your community that you trust that do not believe you, I don't want you to go back into silence. I'm being careful. I'm being careful. I am taking my time, being careful today. Because as Miss Pat was speaking, that was what came to my mind, that you can have those in the audience that say, Lady Lee, I've been telling them. I've been telling them I need help. I need resources. Something is wrong. No one's listening. No one's believing. I've been yelling it. I've been screaming it. I've been saying it for 15 years, 20 years. Those in my house ain't even listening. So maybe I am going crazy. Nothing changes if you don't say or do anything. I know you're tired. I get it. I get it. If you were in my circle, I'd be picking you up. I'd be boosting you. I know you're tired, but nothing changes if you stay silent. Find the courage, find the strength, even if you got to take a break for a little while. Keep telling them. I just needed to say it. Today's that kind of thing. Certain things need to be said, even if you've heard it and even if you know it. I'm putting my request in one more time.
And thank you so much for that, because when they hear it for the first time and they begin to connect the dots, they get excited.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's a dark conversation, but they get excited because, as you stated, because now they feel this like sigh of relief that I can talk about it now.
Yes.
You know, you've given me a safe place, a safe space to talk about it. And if I begin to have these feelings
Yeah.
of reoccurrence of maybe what had happened to my relatives,
Yes.
right? My family members, other community members, now I have a resource. Now I have the words and the language then to bridge them to hope.
Yes.
Because see, AFSP definitely believes, we definitely believe that suicide is preventable, right? It is preventable. And it's preventable because we've done the research, right? To begin to educate, because it's all about education, it's all about awareness. And then, looking at, digging down, drilling down the data, and how can we help that small cohort, right, to become educated and to reduce those numbers. And part of AFSP's next 4-year strategy is just that.
Yeah.
To use the research to prevent future suicides. In all demographics.
In all. Y'all heard that, right? You're
Yes.
not being left out. Listen.
Yeah, in all demographics.
We're going to park part 1 here. And then we're going to come back and we're going to go into some facts and some education. Rise and Fall is on part 2. You guys understand now, when we end part 1, we just end it, nothing fancy, because we got to come back. So we will see you guys in part 2. You'll get your Rise and Fall and your Fireplace with Miss Sounds. She's going to bring us all back down to the spa place. Listen, guys, we'll see y'all soon. Come back, share, comment. Do not leave negativity. It will not be kept. We will not let that be visible. We want to be a positive change here. We'll see y'all soon.
Bye, guys.